religious? Is religion political? How many of you want to give two different answers? Who's confused or conflicted? The fact of the matter is that religion pops up in places where we wouldn't expect it. And we cannot ignore the religious way of life. Politicians certainly do not. A man named Robert Bella wrote an article entitled Civil Religion in America, wherein he talks about the ways in which political culture is sort of like a religion. Bella says it in a way that's much nicer than I could. He says, similar references to God are everywhere in the pronouncements of American presidents on solemn occasions, though usually they are not in the working messages the president sends to Congress. How then ought we to interpret this placement of references to God? Is the presidency endowed with certain religious responsibilities? The president is surrounded by all kinds of symbols of power. The White House is internationally recognizable, as is Air Force One and the Secret Service, for that matter. These examples show that the office of the president is endowed with certain cultural meaning. How the president acts, what decisions are made in that office, affect each of our lives. When we approach politics, we need to understand how it works. For instance, what you learned in your high school civics class. But we also have to think about how religion makes us feel. I want to give an example of how religion and spirituality come together. This occurs in a philosophical system called objectivism. Objectivism is the philosophy of Ayn Rand, who wrote Atlas Shrugged, by the way. Some of you might be familiar. If not, that's also okay. For objectivists, there's something about this philosophy that's particularly special or particularly meaningful for them. It includes an ethical component. And objectivism also has a set of beliefs about how we know things. Objectivism says that we are all rugged individualists, and it says that our understanding of the world reflects exactly what is in the world. Objectivism includes as well a political component. It draws from these arguments about how we know things and about how we should behave. And objectivism makes arguments for why we should believe in free market capitalism and small government. I spend most of my time in academia. I promise you, I'm locked up there most of the time. So a lot of academics think that objectivism is almost a bad word. They summarily reject objectivism because it includes, for a lot of those beliefs, for instance, limited government and limited public spending, which make academics uncomfortable. So that's why academics reject objectivism. But a lot of people I know, religious people, also object objectivism because of its hardline atheistic stance. Now, what's important is that academics and religious people both reject objectivism, but they do so for radically different and unrelated reasons. That shows us that objectivism is not just one thing. It means something different for a lot of different people. When I do work in religious studies, I look at a lot of different beliefs. For instance, the belief in an all-powerful God, but also the belief that evil exists in the world. And I try to understand how all of these beliefs come together and what they mean for people when they do. To me, there's something about objectivism that makes it's more significant for people when they accept it on the whole, rather than going argument by argument. This shows that objectivism includes a way of looking at things that, when its various beliefs come together, is more significant than when those beliefs are taken in isolation. Think about when we go shopping or root for a sports team. These individual decisions don't seem so significant, and yet when they come together for people, they form the very story that we implement in every aspect of our lives. For some of us, forming a new wardrobe plays into our fundamental self-concept. And for others, life without the NFL is just not worth living. I want to introduce another scholar. His name is David Chittister. Chittister writes about religion in pop culture. Or some might say religion as pop culture. He talks about a church of baseball. Now, this is not a literal church. Not even Chittister believes that people worship baseball. But he says that merchandise, people's choice of teams, and the American history of baseball all come together to form a type of symbol that people use in order to make themselves unique. And that way in which people make themselves unique ties them to the world as well as to each other in a religious kind of way. It's best to wonder about stuff like this. Is something a religion just because people take it seriously? Is a clever interpretation what makes something a religion? Chittister. Is objectivism a religion just because people take it seriously? I could argue any side of that debate. If you're confused or conflicted, then maybe it's because no one has really defined religion. Thankfully, we don't need to delve into what religion means in order to talk about what's meaningful for people's lives. Concepts like these are integral for people in the sense that they give them something to go off of when they try to make sense of the world. A philosophy like objectivism is important for objectivists because it gives them the sort of theoretical concepts that they work with when they understand what's meaningful for them. In this way, objectivist social newsletters, nonprofits, political campaigns, etc., take on a special kind of meaning for the objectivists because for them, this sort of guiding philosophy makes them who they are. Not unlike how a church community guides some Christian believers in understanding their own relationship to the world. For objectivists, these conferences, newsletters, nonprofits, political campaigns provide an outlet for them to come together and to express their beliefs. And they're drawn together because they had certain beliefs in the first place. Much like when I study religions, I think the key to understanding objectivism is to understand how these big ideas fit together and what they mean for people when they do. Objectivism can be talked about in a number of different ways. I choose to talk about it how I talk about a religion, because to me, something that people take as seriously as objectivism deserves a critical but open perspective. Religion is special to us. It's protected, for instance, in the Constitution. But is religion special to us only because it's called religion? To me, religion has something about it that we cannot fully explain. It has a power over people. Much like objectivism does when it makes people feel and understand things. It's not dangerous to approach something you know. And it's not dangerous to approach something with a critical mind and a goal to understand. It's not dangerous to approach something you don't know. What's dangerous is to approach something you think you know, only to find yourself not knowing enough. People's deep beliefs are like that last part. It takes best friends years to know each other well enough to know how the other would react in certain situations. And yet it is possible to know someone that well. This is what I mean when I talk about people's deep beliefs coming together. Knowing how your friend will react to things means knowing how they see and understand the world beyond any concrete example we could possibly imagine. Objectivism is like that as well, because objectivism is a complex philosophy. It's not a single belief. So how can we ignore all of that when people are talking, and we only focus on what we disagree with? To me, we rely too much on religion and secular philosophy being different from one another. My number one example is objectivism because a lot of different people disagree with it for different reasons. What it shows us when people disagree with objectivism for different reasons is that it's a complex philosophy, much like an integrated religious system or a complex human being. Nothing can be taken in isolation and retain its full meaning. Nothing can be taken in isolation and retain its full meaning. It might be good for you to disagree with objectivism, and it might be good for most people to disagree with objectivism. But regardless, we are responsible for what we choose to believe. I study religions and philosophy. That means that I try to understand how people's deep beliefs come together and what they mean for people when they do. How are certain beliefs connected to each other? Why do people believe certain things? And what constitutes knowing something as opposed to just believing it? One thing that I've noticed from studying people and from studying complex beliefs is that the more questions you ask, the fewer answers you get. This is why people hate philosophers. And yet, it's when we don't understand that we ought to be the most careful. When we don't understand is certainly not when we want to be arguing with people about what they might understand very well. It's not dangerous to approach something you know. It's not dangerous to try to learn about something that you don't know. It's only dangerous when you approach something you think you know, only to find yourself not knowing enough. Sometimes asking questions is more important than answering them. Thank you.